Hello and welcome to this very, very special edition of Off the Cuff OTC, a conversation that we hold with really interesting people, but equally importantly, with an equally interesting and intelligent audience. So thank you all for being here. And I know that you haven't come here to, I know Barkha is a big star, but you haven't come here to listen to her. You come here to listen to Mr. Bachchan and this gentleman called Shoojit Sircar. Please wish him on his 49th birthday. He's the second youngest person in this group. I am the youngest. Having said that, Shoojit and Mr. Bachchan, it's an interesting pairing. These two span many generations of Hindi cinema. I'm of the generation that watched Mr. Bachchan in South Hindustani, Anand, and now a third generation is being charmed by stuff he's doing in very interesting new kind of cinema, the kind of cinema that Shoojit produces, which is cinema on contemporary issues, on slice of life stories. Earlier, our cinema, which is sort of, in my view, unfortunately called Bollywood, was always a fantasy land. Lately, we've had young filmmakers who touch real life stories and then are blessed that their big stars, the biggest of them all, like Mr. Bachchan, agrees happily to work for these films, for these stories, to give them not just heft and weight, but also box office appeal. So that's the reason we have these two. Barkha is my partner, she's right here, and she'll carry on the conversation.
Well, Mr. Bachchan, I remember once you said to me, and I didn't believe it at that time, you said there was a time I used to be Amitabh Bachchan. Now I'm just a name in the credit line. I'm just another name. Are you looking at this hall? We've never had in this jaded political capital city of Delhi this kind of turnout for anything. Surely, when you talk about being just another name in the credit line, that is typical self-deprecation by Amitabh Bachchan.
They've all come to see you. They haven't come to see me.
See, now that made my day, always a gentleman. But seriously, at this point in your life, there must be moments of looking back and looking ahead. And as Shekhar said, there is an entire body of work. And yet, even now, in your 70s, here you are, as hungry for the next interesting character. How do you keep that hunger alive? Because the best of us get bored. We get cynical. We think it's time to hang up our boots. Has that thought never crossed you?
For me, it's a necessity. I need to work to earn
Oh,
a
come
living.
on. Oh, come on.
So I just look for another job, and I'm very grateful that you gave me one.
Is Mr. Amitabh Bachchan scared of getting old?
I think that as an artist, you crave to do the kind of work that is offered to you. I would like to believe that if there are professionals in the audience today, that's what you crave for. You want to keep working at your craft and as much as you can get. There's never a day when you say, I'm done with this and that's it. I think the creative field doesn't allow you to do that. I think in the creative field, you keep looking for fresh avenues, fresh challenges. If my body can take that, yes, I would like to look for fresh challenges almost every day.
And this new turn that we've seen for the past few years, I would say, there was Pa, there was Piku before this, and this. These are, I mean, Pa was not a senior role, but these two are senior roles. So is this a deliberate decision that you now come in as the big star in a film with young directors and young actors, and give the film heft? Do you particularly enjoy working with very young people? You could still be doing the same old fantasy movies.
I think that whatever is available at that point of time, whatever the circumstances are, what designs go into the mind of a director as to what he wants to make, and if there's a role that suits my temperament or my age, then it is offered to me. I don't think that I go out looking deliberately for anything. It's the other way around. I look for, as I said, another job, and if it is commensurate with my age, then I accept it. I don't think there's any deliberate move to, I'm done with this, now I have to do this. I just look at it as moving on day to day.
So there is no new frontier.
No, it doesn't.
Shoojit? Do you agree with that? Or is he being too modest?
Uh, I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, but I've seen. He's 74 now, I think. So you're going on 75, right?
Yeah.
But on the set, I think he's 14-year-old boy. So, and script is like a toy that you have given him, and he wants to play with that toy. You know, he just don't want to leave that toy. He
And
just
are you
clings.
like the cantankerous parent?
No.
Or are you like, okay, this is my child and I dare not tell him to stop playing with his toy?
No, you know, for me, for a director and for an artist like us, we care a lot for our script. That's our everything. That's our hero of our film is our script, for me at least. And if somebody takes care of that script, clings to it, and respects it, I think that's enough for us, you know. And he, as soon as he gets a script, he forgets everything. He forgets his lunch. He forgets everything. All through for 3 months or 4 months into every night and day, he questions me each and everything on the script. And I have to be ready to answer those. And also discuss it out and debate it out. What I think he looks for, possibly, I think he must have done so many things. And as an artist, I think he looks for somebody who can steer him, you know, who can, you know, ask him to do, challenge his, what he has not done before. So, for example, in Pink, he's playing a lawyer, you know. It's a very, very difficult. And on the other hand, in Piku, he's playing a constipated father. So, so it's difficult to accept that kind of.
So the next one is going to be a constipated lawyer. I don't know.
I think that will not be atypical.
But you know, Mr. Bachchan, you revealed recently, talking about Piku, that Deepika Padukone actually got paid more than you for the film. Is that true?
Somebody asked me as a question that there has to be some equality between men and women as far as even pay scales are concerned. And they pointed a finger at me. I said, don't look at me. I was paid less than Deepika Padukone in Piku. It was just an off-the-cuff remark. But yes, I don't mind admitting that. And what's wrong with that?
No,
I think we could call him our brand ambassador. He said it was an off-the-cuff remark. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
But you know, more seriously, do you, pointing to Shekhar's opening comments about how cinema today is more steeped in realism. You know, for those of us who sort of grew up watching you, sir, you were the anti-establishment hero at a time when films we thought were about real issues. Then we saw this phase in the middle where Hindi cinema became all about the beautiful people. And actually you couldn't even find India's middle class or low middle class in those movies. And now we seem to be back to a much more sort of dipped in reality kind of cinema. Is that how you see it? Like when we look at Pink or we look at Piku, these are relatable, identifiable characters. They're not larger than life. They are people in which we can see our own lives. Is that a shift?
Yeah, a large part of that has to go with the people that are present here, because they are the people that wanted the change, they wanted to see something different. They guided us. They've always guided us. We make films and do our creations on what is going on in society, what's going on in the country, what the temperament is, what kind of stories people want to hear and see, what kind of entertainment they want to have. I'm not saying that we're only making, issue-oriented films. We are also making films that are, the typical escapist fare. And there's a lovely mix and a lovely balance. But if you are conscious of the fact that we are deliberately going out and making films which are issue-based, then a lot of that credit goes to the audience that is sitting here today, because they have guided us to do something like this.
So how many in this audience have seen his earliest films like say Anand? Look at this.
So
it's a full hall.
It's a full hall. And how many members of this audience have seen every Bachchan film?
That's almost a full hall as well.
There we go.
Yeah. This is, on a serious note, this is not a clear indication, because seriously, you've been able to see them because despite the age difference, it's been appearing on television, and television is largely responsible for keeping people like me still alive.
I keep calling this self-deprecating. You keep saying you're being dead serious. But let's shift the focus just a little bit to Shoojit, because I don't know if you know this, Mr. Bachchan, but where we're sitting at the Meridien is where Shoojit, you actually used to work.
Oh, yes.
So what's that story
It
about?
was his first job, and we plotted it like this, that we will do this conversation at the Meridien.
Yeah, I mean, I was studying in Bhagat Singh College, and I somehow managed to clear my exams, and I was a football player, as I said. I didn't get my job this on my credentials, but Meridian team had a football team, so they were playing match against the Taj team, so they needed a good footballer. So they asked me to play a match, and we won the match, and they said, "Will you?"
So he had a sports quota job.
Yes. So I had a sports quota job, and that's how it's all started. And I never knew that I will be a filmmaker, or I will
What
be.
were you doing in this hotel?
I was in the accounts department doing debit and credit.
See, so he's the finance person. You're asking me to help. He knows it all.
Yeah, I just came to know about that today, so I'm going to refer to him later on.
Yeah, and it's just started like that. And obviously, Mandi House was just walking distance. I walked in there and started, joined a theatre group and just working on a theatre. So that's how. And theatre is, I tell everybody, all the film enthusiasts, whoever wants to join films, I tell them, don't come to Mumbai first. First, wherever you are, do at least 2 years of theatre. Theatre will ground you. Theatre will teach you. Theatre will teach you social issues, dealing with everyday life, the reflections of everyday life, and then come to Mumbai, and then you will be much more grounded there too.
You know, I've asked you this many times before, but I know that the hall would like me to try my luck again. You are a very difficult person to interview because you're very closely guarded. You don't tell us much about yourself. How does one get beyond the Amitabh Bachchan that we see on screen? How do we, for example, get you to open up about your brief flirtation with politics and why you swore off it? Will you always say no comment, or would you surprise me this time?
I've never said no comment. I just said that I'm not.
He's just given the same comment.
No, let's hear him,
I just said I'm not qualified for it, and therefore I left it.
How would you describe that experience? A mistake, torture, boredom, never again?
How would you feel if you were put into the cockpit of a Boeing 707 and asked to fly the plane?
I know how will the passengers feel.
Yeah, that's how I felt. So I don't know the job.
When did you discover that you did not know that job as a politician?
Yeah, I think my decision was emotional. I wanted to go and help a friend. But when I went there and when I got into it, I realized that it's got nothing to do with emotion. There's a lot more to it. And I'm incapable of doing that. So I withdrew.
You entered politics to help a friend.
But was the friendship lost because of this?
No, friendship is not lost at all.
No, that's the other thing you've never spoken about.
How does one talk about friendship? We are friends.
So what do you remember about... You can see, this is a difficult interview. This is a difficult conversation to have.
You see, all of us have rehearsed this multiple times in real interviews with him. But this is Mr. Bachchan. His defense outside the off stump is better than Rahul Dravid's, I can guarantee that to you.
What do you remember before we come back to cinema? And I'm sorry I'm pushing you on this because it's just, we want to know you better. What is your one memory of those few years of being a politician? Do you ever think of that time at all?
And if there's anything that I regret, it's that I made a lot of promises for the city of Allahabad and for the people of Allahabad and never was able to fulfill them. I try and do as much as I can in a social capacity, but I know that that's not enough. And that is something that I'm sure that the people of Allahabad will always hold up against me. But I'll have to live with that.
In fact, since you talked about all the work you do in your social capacity, we have Ambassador Verma. You told me about the work he's doing for your tuberculosis program.
One of the projects we've been privileged to work with you on is the campaign to end tuberculosis in India. And I just wanted to ask you, maybe you could state for the audience and for the people watching why you got involved in that particular campaign and what you think people can do to end TB in India. And what would you say to those people in India who might be afflicted with tuberculosis right now?
Yeah. I myself was a TB survivor. I felt that if I talked to the people and talked to the audience, giving my own example, it perhaps would strike a note. Tuberculosis is normally associated, with all due respects, people who have lived in lesser means, in an environment which is not so clean and pure. And therefore, what I did say in the campaign, which actually I designed myself because I wanted to speak as frankly as I could, that despite the fact that we were privileged enough to be living in an environment which was clean and pure, and perhaps lived in better means, you can still get tuberculosis. So it's not something that is only assigned to people who live in lesser means. But why I wanted to say that was that it is curable, and if you are able to attract attention to the medical profession and get yourself checked, it is curable. Excellency, if I can, talk to the people about tuberculosis and tell them that here is a survivor, and if it could happen to me, it could happen to anyone, which is a rather immodest statement to make, but if it's going to help the cause, I don't mind saying it.
In fact, that's very
So
well
to
said.
talk a little
because
bit
for some
about a much discussed letter that you wrote to your granddaughters that has become the focus of a lot of online debate. And you're an active online presence, so you've been following the debate. One of course, the stirring things about the letter is that you're telling your granddaughters, and I love that line, you said, never worry about log kya kahenge. Just forget about it. First, I want to ask you, before we talk about the letter, have you ever worried log kya kahenge?
I was always from birth known as Bachchanji's son, who was an important name. And I always was conscious of the fact that I need to conduct myself in a manner where his name doesn't get spoiled. So I had to look at it in a different aspect. But the point in the letter is not that at all. It's more on what your beliefs, what your commitments are, what you're thinking. Don't get pressurized by log kya kahenge. Because there is this stigma with all women, unfortunately, in our country, where you're told, when you sit, cross your legs and sit. When you go out, just be properly dressed. Don't go here, don't meet this guy. Come back at so-and-so time. Yes, these are some things that we all tell our children but to be bogged down by it, to be pressurized by it, and to conduct your life not because that's not what you felt like doing, but to do because you've been told not to do it. I was just saying, you are wise enough and have enough wisdom and have enough sense to know what is right for you and what is wrong for you. Use that rather than be living with some kind of stigma that has been thrust upon us through ages. There is so much that women in our country are subjected to because there has been a tradition of that. Why should there be a definite desire to keep following that? Why does the wife have to walk, 10 steps behind the husband? When a child is born, when the girl is born, you give her toys that resemble cooking utensils, or you give her a house to build. But when a little boy is born, you give him a car or a gun, or, why is that differentiation? And I think at a very early age, children have this discrimination inculcated into them.
The dialogue you speak in the courtroom, how much of that is pure cinema and how much of that comes from personal passion and belief?
I think Shoojit will be able to answer that better because he and his entire production team went through a very rigorous research before they actually wrote even a single word in the script. And Shoojit will describe to you, he studied several cases, legal cases, on similar issues, went to courts in Delhi, in Calcutta, in Kolkata, in Bengaluru, in Mumbai, met a lot of lawyers, met a lot of legal dignitaries, went through these cases and sat for months before they actually designed the terminology. And I know that some of the terminology in the trailer that people saw of Pink was perhaps a little, taken aback by the kind of language that was being used. But let me tell you, and I'm sure that he will reassure everyone here, that they were all taken from real life cases where lawyers have actually used this. And so there was nothing actually, something that was being, as you put it, Shekharji, deliberately designed for cinema to attract attention. It was something as real as that.
mean, there was no intention to sensationalize the issue or what the girl is going through. I mean, she is standing in the witness box, and my first question to her is, "Are you a virgin?"
And that's actually in the trailer. And I was just telling you that I actually think that to center stage consent and sexual consent in that way is really quite a remarkable first, to openly talk about virginity and sexuality and consent.
Yes, I think we were always, I feel we were always dancing around the periphery. We were not hitting the spot. And I had decided that this time, one day, as I said, how this idea came in, and I was sitting with my wife and having tea, and there was a newspaper article on women empowerment. So she just passed a comment, it hurt me a lot. She just said, "Ki this is modern times of 2015, and we are talking about women empowerment. Isn't this shameless?" So it was. I felt so guilty about it. I was sitting there as a man, as a husband, as a father. So that's how we started. Okay, let's design this and let's go into the story. We normally question the character of a woman wherever they are, even if it's not a witness box, even if she's walking on the street at 8 o'clock in the evening, by a stare you can ask that question. So I think it's quite a sad and painful thing, but it had to come out at some time.
How do you tell the mothers at home, and how do you tell the sons at home and the brothers and sisters to treat their women properly?
Yeah. I think at a very early age, the kind of training, the kind of upbringing that you impart to your children, that is very important. If at a very early age you're going to start discriminating, as I said earlier on, giving different kinds of toys to other people, they will grow up with this temperament. And if ever they come across, or you come across, an incident at a very young age, when you feel that there is something going wrong, it needs to be corrected at that point of time so that they don't carry it for the rest of their lives. And I do believe that there is change happening, and I think you can notice that. If you were to ask me personally, I would say that in my 47 years of my association with the film industry, I notice it in my industry. In the 70s and 80s, there were hardly any women or ladies working on set. The only lady on set was the leading lady and her mother, who came as a chaperone. And now you have almost 75% of the staff in a studio on a project comprising of young girls. And they look after almost every department. And that's a great moment of pride for us. They do camera, they do administration, they do production, they do all kinds of jobs, and they are very efficient at it. So that's a change. There's a very important kahawat, Hindi mein kahawat hai, usko badal diya hai ye women consciousness ne aur women empowerment ne. मैं वो कहावत कहूँगा, लेकिन मुझे कहते हुए शर्म आती है वो। कहावत थी कि ढोल गंवार शूद्र पशु नारी ये सब ताड़न के अधिकारी। आज के ज़माने में आप ये हरगिज़ नहीं कह सकते हैं, और ये इसलिए नहीं कह सकते हैं क्योंकि आज everybody has realized that you cannot say that.
You talked about your stint in politics, but I'm just curious to know, between politics and cinema, which is a more cutthroat, more ruthless, more unforgiving profession?
You'll have to ask somebody who's been seriously involved in politics and seriously involved in cinema to be able to answer that question. I'm the wrong person, really.
Is the industry cutthroat?
Sorry?
Is the film industry cutthroat?
I don't think so, no.
No?
I believe that if you have the talent and the creative capability, you don't have reason to doubt that or to even think about it. You rely on your own talent, the own strength of your talent, and that's how you go ahead. I think we are a wonderful fraternity. There are many aspects of film and filmdom which I feel are great messages for the world in general. When we, and I've said this many times, when we sit inside a closed hall, we never ask the caste, creed, color, or religion of the person sitting next to you. Where in the world do you get institutions which are so integrated as cinema is? We have different communities of people working with us all in one kind of brotherhood.
Could we talk a little bit about being political in the deeper sense? I don't mean party politics, I don't mean electoral politics, but something I've always wondered about is, you know, when you look at the United States of America, for example, and this election campaign that's unfolding there, you'll have prominent actors taking very distinct political positions. We still see a hesitation in the industry here. The films are getting more political, but the actors are still hesitant. Is there a fear of controversy? Is there a fear of backlash? What happened to an Amir Khan for what he said, or a Shah Rukh to what he said? Why don't we see leading lights like all of you stand up and lead the way on the deepest political questions of our time?
There are very few journalists in your profession who do the same thing. I would plead guilty because it's, no, seriously.
Okay.
You become an artist, you have people who follow you, who love you, who give you their attention, and there is a desire to reciprocate that. If one of them happens to be a politician, you reciprocate that. So what does that mean? Just because I'm reciprocating somebody's love, I'm going to love his politics? I don't think so. My job is to be in front of this camera and try to deliver my goods as well as I can, not to be fiddling around with, you know, I need to talk to this guy because he's politically strong, or this guy because he's going to save me from the income tax, or this guy who's going to, you know, help me out in some crisis. I don't want to divert my mind there. I would just like to do my job.
But Amitabh Bachchan has to fear repercussions?
Of course, most certainly. Why not?
Who'd harm you?
Come over to my house, I'll tell you. We can
Well,
talk about it.
all I can tell you is that nobody in this city also has the power to help you with income tax, but everybody has the power to harm you with income tax.
Yeah, you know, because income tax and death are the only two permanents in life.
I wanted to know, do you plead guilty as well for not making statements on political issues, or do you use cinema as a means to make statements?
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. My medium of expression is cinema. And in all my films, there has been a deep political message for sure. Because even if you see Madras Cafe, what he said, and my first film, Yahan, that was on Kashmir, and there is what the film I made in 2005, I can see it right now. It's happening there. The conversations in that film are so you know, it's evident now. I'm seeing. I'm just sort of surprised.
Barkha, you said, you know, in Hollywood people do that. I think that they're a more mature audience there. They understand each other. Here, it's still a little limited. And I always quote this example. When I was electioneering for the Congress party in Assam, we used to take off in a helicopter, go to various places. We used to give our speeches. And we landed once at a location which was actually by mistake the opposition.
In an AGP rally, I was there, sir.
Oh, you were there?
1985,
right.
yes.
And we made that mistake, and soon the police came and said, sir, you know, you're going to get attacked here, so you better leave. So we rushed back into the helicopter, and there were all young students in the crowd, and one of them broke the cordon, ran up to the helicopter, where I was sitting, smashed his hand through the window, and put a piece of paper in my hand. And we took off with great difficulty, and when I opened it, it said, Mr. Bachchan, I'm a great fan of yours. Please go away. Don't be here in electioneering because you are dividing my emotion and sentiment. And I think that's one of the things that all artists have to face. We spend an entire lifetime trying to get people to love us for what we are as creative artists, and then suddenly we tell them, now because you love me, start loving my politics. I felt that was wrong.
How do you think this movie will affect the current mindset of people about, you know, gender equality?
Yeah.
A serious question.
You're at the right age to be asking this question, let me tell you that. But maybe Shoojit, because he designed something in his mind, and maybe he can start this, and then I can join in later to answer your question.
How old are you?
I'm 13.
All right, absolutely. So film is UA. You can go and watch it for sure. Well, I don't make films to preach the society, no. I don't make films to create any diktats. I create to engage you for 2 hours, the story I believe in. But yes, if you can walk out of the theater and you can sit down at the dining table and you can talk to your dad and mom that no, in this case you were wrong, in this case I was right. I think I will be very happy that the conversation has started. That's the takeout of this film. I would love to.
I wanted to ask you that your dad, he has written so many poems and stories. Has he ever written one on you?
No, he hasn't written one on me, but he did say that Amitabh is my best poem.
मेरा नाम विमला मेहता है, मैं लेखिका हूँ और मैं आपसे ये जानना चाहती हूँ कि आपके जीवन में आपकी माताजी तेजी बच्चन, आपकी पत्नी जया बच्चन, इनका क्या प्रभाव पड़ा?
इनका क्या?
प्रभाव पड़ा।
जी, जीता जागता उदाहरण आपके सामने बैठा हुआ है।
नहीं साहब, इसको मजाक में मत टालिए।
नहीं। माँ नहीं होती तो मैं नहीं होता
जी,
और मैं नहीं होता तो पत्नी नहीं होती।
My question to you, sir, is from the time you have been a celebrity, what have you discovered about yourself which you didn't know earlier?
Good question.
Oh gosh. What's the name of the school?
Vasant Valley.
Okay. Must remember that. Yes, I know it. I don't know. I don't think the profession really teaches me to discover myself. We try to learn and discover the characters that we play. You know, in the films, we have several occasions where, let's say, your mother is dying, and you have to emote. And I've done about 6 or 7 films where my mother has passed away in the scene, and I've had to emote, and I hope that I've done my very best. And when you do that, you think of all kinds of things. And I have always wondered that when my mother did pass away in real life, whether those emotions that I expressed and played out in those 5 other sequences that I did, have I been able to bring out that emotion at the time when my real mother died? I don't know, and that's a dilemma that we all live with. And it's the same thing in death scenes. You know, I've died about 15 times on screen. You know, I have to discover a different way of dying in each film. You know, I can die standing up, running, sitting down, or whatever. But when it happens in real time, I don't know if my children who will watch it will say, "Yeah, we saw that. We saw Dad doing that before."
I think there was a time in this first half of your career when every film you had to find a new way of killing people and killing more people with one blow.
Yeah.
So how did you keep on multiplying? In one you kill 18, the next 36.
The
Then
directors used to do that. I remember sitting on a script sitting with Mr. Manmohan Desai, with whom I'd already worked in, say, 2 or 3 films. And the writer was describing the scene. I said, "जी वो फिर वो अमिताभ जी इधर से आते हैं और उधर से वो सब गैंग आता है और 7-8 आदमी उधर से आते हैं। स्टॉप है, पिछले पिक्चर में उसने 7-8 को मारा, अगले पिक्चर में 15 होना चाहिए."
Everybody deals with pressure differently, and some people do break under pressure. And you have never broken under pressure. There may have been cracks, but you've never broken under pressure.
We all go through phases where you feel that, you know, this is the end of the world. But sometimes circumstances coerce you to carry on. I would like to believe that there were circumstances in my case which forced me and coerced me to continue.
Sir, I want to question a simple question that how do you describe pink in a single dialogue?
No means no.
Well done.
There is no further meaning after no. If you go and look up the dictionary, you won't find any further meaning of no. No means no. And when somebody says it, particularly a woman, whether she's your friend, your girlfriend, your wife, your sex worker, when a woman says no, you stop.
Amit ji, you said nobody is special, but we have a very special guest because she's wearing a Being Bachchan t-shirt.
That your first 13 films were actually flops. And how did you
more
feel?
that happened after that.
How did you feel? I mean, after every film that flopped, how did you?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's just like failing an examination. You try out something and you fail, it doesn't succeed, you sit back and think about it. But I think that, you know, failures give you an opportunity to realize where you went wrong, and it's important to... I'm sounding like some, you know, some muni baitha hua hai yahan par kuch gyan de raha. No, you just look at where you've gone wrong and try and analyze it and not make those same mistakes again.
बच्चन साहब नमस्कार।
नमस्कार।
अगर आपको कोई पॉलिटिकली कंट्रोवर्शियल रोल मॉडल का रियल रोल ऑफर किया जाए, आप उसको करना चाहेंगे?
हाँ, क्यों नहीं? So long as it remains a role.
So you will not be afraid to go on screen and act out a politically controversial person.
Like who?
I will not like to name that.
You should name somebody. There's nobody.
Maybe she can name it.
Bal Thackeray?
Yeah, I think that there have been films like Sircar that have been inspired from him, but not exactly him.
But we have a Shoojit story. Is it true that you've never watched a Salman Khan movie?
Yes, I have not finished any Salman Khan film.
Not
as yet.
finished or not?
And I can say I've almost never watched one from the beginning.
Yeah, so I can tell you one small story about Piku.
Yes.
When the first time I got the idea of this constipated father, so I call and I go to him, and he doesn't know what I've come for. So I tell him, sir, there's a story of this Delhi. There's a girl whose name is Piku, and you're the father, and your character is of that you are constipated. And he stares at me, and I don't know what to say at that moment. He's looking at me. And I exactly don't know he's staring at me. I should run away from there. What should I do? Because, you know, I've asked him, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan, to play this character. And he took the script, okay? He said, leave the script, and I'm going to London, I'm going to read this script. And then he calls me, he sends me a huge mail from there about his questions, the way he works. Why is this, why is that, why is that, why is that? And me and my writer were very sure that he's not going to work in this film. I mean, it's gone. And then in one evening, I also got really, I said, no, I'll have to explain what's in my heart, I have to pour it out. And I just write a huge mail back, and I go to him and I start enacting. And his mail comes back only saying, okay.
I can say that summarizes also the plight of journalists who try and try and try, and then Mr. Bachchan just says, yes, so, and that kind of shuts me up. Well, may you keep illuminating our screens and engaging our minds. A big round of applause for Amitabh Bachchan and Shoojit Sircar. And that is it on this edition of Off the Cuff. Shekhar, Gupta and I will continue to bring you many such interesting conversations, we hope. Thank you for watching, and see you all next time.